welcome back, listeners, to another interesting episode on the BizBlend podcast where business meets mindset and leadership blends with purpose. I'm your host, Sana, and today in this episode, we are diving into a topic that hits hard at the heart of entrepreneurship and leadership. Breaking financial limits and leading from a place of overflow, but not burnout. Our guest today, listeners, is someone who knows what it's like to be successful on paper but feels stuck inside. Meet Billy Fowler. Let me share a bit about Billy with all of you listeners. He has spent over 20 years as a corporate HR executive before walking away from it all. After a personal 100-hour life reset, he founded Overflow Nation, a global movement dedicated to helping people reset their lives, align their leadership, and experience true financial freedom. He's also the author of The Answer: Break Every Limit, Receive Every Blessing, This Time the Overflow Stays, a book that is sparking breakthroughs worldwide. So, listeners, get ready to explore leadership from the inside out and also learn how to activate your purpose, your finances, and even your life. Because Billy's message is all about earning while you grow and giving while you rise. So, if you have ever felt like you are stuck in that survival mode or you are wondering what it really means to lead in today's world, this episode is for you. So, Billy, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us.
Glad to be here. Super excited having me.
Great, great. So Billy, let's talk about your journey. Um, 20 plus year corporate career, you walked away from that. I mean that is a huge leap. Uh, and actually a few can take that risk. So what exactly triggered that decision for you, Billy, and how did that 100-hour life reset lead to founding Overflow Nation?
Yeah, so great question and great entry. Uh,
Mhm.
so I guess my evolution is somewhat different. I think that it didn't just start at the catalyst of that decision. I think it went back to my childhood, and I'm initially from um, kind of the midwestern part of the United States, and being brought up as a young boy in the Midwest, I had access to a lot of uh, different things and wholesome activities, and my parents and my grandparents were always big in giving. Giving was a big characteristic within our family structure, and I watched my immediate family give to families and give to just become givers, whether that's in just overall, you know, giving to another family or and my family actually does very well financially. Um, and my family actually owns an aerospace plant in Michigan, and so I didn't come up the traditional route where things were stressful due to finance and economics. I had the privilege of being under that family structure, and so I saw a lot of those characteristics as a young child. And then I left. I went to undergraduate school, and I actually majored in human resources management, and then ended up going to getting an MBA about 10 or 12 years later in finance. And so as I continue my evolution, I noticed a lot of opportunities to give as well. But I noticed that throughout my life, and I'm 53, that a lot of the people didn't have those accesses, and they weren't privileged in those areas, and so I didn't see a lot of giving. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, man, this world is not like I was used, not what I'm prone to as a young man and as a grown adult. And so I said, wouldn't it be neat to create a structure in this world to create an impulse of giving, because I see a lot of taking and I see a lot of self-centeredness, and I think that that may be okay if that's part of what you're exposed to, and you really can't knock anybody's evolution, because they always say you can't knock anybody until you walk in their shoes. But my shoes were a little different, so I said I wanted to create something for the world, where we can have structured giving. So if I were to put um, Overflow Nation as a mantra, or the genesis, the core genesis behind what I have put together, it's centered around giving. And so I read a book years ago called The Secret, and that was all about manifestation. So if you enjoyed the book The Secret, you'll really love The Answer, and that's essentially the book I put together that's on Amazon. And so if I were to key in one word about The Secret, it would be manifestation. And if I were to key in one word, if I were to double click and zero in on one word for The Answer, it would be activation and overflow. And so, but in order to get the overflow, which is what Overflow Nation is about, you have to understand how to activate it. And if I were to summarize my book, the output is activation. But how do you get activation? It's about giving. And so the book walks you through normal situations that everybody can associate with. It starts off with an individual that has everything going on, but then there's not peace within his own mind. And it even goes into single mothers, and it dives into people behind prison walls. And so it really speaks to the underdogs, the people that didn't get some of the things that we normally, if you're blessed with, if you're fortunate with. So how do you get out of that though? How do you pull yourself out of that? And so I said, the book is just an entry port, a port of entry. So that's just one aspect. So I said, wouldn't it be neat, because I come from the HR world, I know how to put systems and programs together. So I created an ambassador program. So the first step is really to understand what the book is talking about. It unlocks your access into this kind of this gateway. And then the second aspect behind that is getting placed into a 4-week power circle. And then in the power circle, it really serves as your board of advisors. It really serves as your accountability, because I believe if from individuals, because I would get into subgroups after reading The Secret, and a lot of people got stuck. They really didn't have a next step. And so I said, if I put something together for this world, I don't want you just to read the book and to put it on the shelf. I want to create an ambassador program. So the ambassador program actually involves the power circle, and it's a very structured process. Everything that you do with Overflow Nation, because I come from this HR background, is very structured. And then the next week, it takes you through a 9-week progression. So the 9-week progression walks you through specific things within the book uh, to uncover how to really manifest and activate your overflow. So I'll pause there for questions.
Mm. First of all, uh, and that is really really profound. And one question which comes to my mind is, Billy, um, sometimes success can either really get onto our head. It can really sometimes derail, or maybe we would struggle with sustaining success, or it would be so brittle that if there is some kind of we hit some kind of roadblock in there, we kind of give in. So why do you think that happens to us, with us? I mean, what is the reason there? Is it something within our subconscious, or that is how we are wired or programmed?
Absolutely, and I think that within, it's ironic that you asked that question, and that's a great leading point. The second um, chapter of the book, and also the second week. So every week addresses each chapter within a book, ironically. And so the second week, or the second chapter, talks about, is actually identified as the block. And in the block, it confronts your internal and external limits that you were taught as a child. And I think that um, the chapter before that gets into mirrors, teaching you what you were exposed to. And I think a lot of people have limited their belief system is very limited. And so we our lives are a direct result of what we attract. And I think that a lot of people don't. And I think a lot of these are laws. You know, they're internal laws and external laws that you need to understand. And just like any laws in today's society, whether in India or here in America, if you break the law by speeding, then you're going to get a ticket. And then if you get so many tickets, it's going to prevent you from driving any further. So the same thing goes into manifestation and activation. So if you don't understand what those laws are, you were brought into this world to manifest whatever you want. Now, you may have been born into debt due to your parents. You may have been born into this world with a limited belief system. Immediately, people were telling you that you were not going to be successful, and then if you start believing that, then you are now evoking some of these laws into your life. And I think there's generational laws that have occurred for a lot of individuals, and unfortunately, some people never tap into their true success. And just because your parents may have had a debt um, uh, economically into this world when you were born does not necessarily mean that you have to continue to have that. There are ways that you can stop getting those speeding tickets if you just obey those laws. And I think that's one of the neat things that I put into the book. And also I have classes on overflownation.com where people can learn those 9 laws, and gonna have other classes as well that really teach people how to move from where they're at now, because I think a lot of people are stuck, and they don't really know economically how to get out of that situation. I think they just believe that the rest of their life, they're just gonna go from check to check, and I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm so fortunate, because I've been around not only my parents, but key mentors within my life, universally, that created a nice ecosystem for me.
Mm. And Billy, you um you have had your 20 years of career into HR. How exactly the financial aspect comes into play, in this 9-week transformational journey? I mean, why do you think it is so important to address that? Because I mean, there are there's so much nuance in there, when we bring that financial aspect here. So how exactly it intersects here?
Yeah, so I think the best way to answer that is when people hear the word giving, and I know I started initially talking about that when I started going down the path of my background and what I was exposed to early. So that essentially is what we teach you as part of the program. Is most people, they give to maybe close relatives. They may open up their home. They may allow someone, their parents, to stay in their house. That's an act of giving. You may walk into a store and you may smile at another person that you feel in your heart that needs a smile, and you intentionally and you are very deliberate in your actions. And I think those are some outward acts of giving. But the to answer your immediate question regarding financial um, aspects, the activation part there is you have to give money. You specifically have to give money, not clothes, not shoes. All those are part of the process that we teach you. If you want a pair of shoes, you give a pair of shoes. If you want a nice dress or a nice shoe, nice suit, then you give a nice dress. You go out and give your best suit away. You give your best dress away. Now, those are activation buttons that you can put in your life. And here's the nice thing that I like about this, that I want to point out, and I think that um, I teach people to create an Excel spreadsheet, and I challenge our ambassadors to put in there, create a column specifically for the areas financially that you're giving, give and identify the date. And here's where things change in people's lives. And we're coming out with an app here next week, and we're going to have this community where people can start to showcase these things, because I said, well, we got to showcase these. 'Cause the people are calling me and say, hey, I'm seeing the change. So what is the change? So if you gave, so today is the 20 4th of April, okay, or the 25th, wherever you're at. And so you'd put that date down in Excel. You'd put down that I gave $50 or I paid $50 to a family behind me in the grocery store. You just basically look around and say, hey, I'm going to pay for your groceries. Are you okay with that? And then I've had people tell me no. It is amazing when you want to start giving and you could actually keep track of what I give. And here's the blessing. Here's the actual the beauty of what I'm saying is I want everybody to understand that I want you to put down you're going to get something that's going to happen tenfold or 10x as a result of that. And I want you to put that on the next column. And I want people to begin to show goal because that is essentially. So to answer your question, how did you do that, Billy? It is because I understand the laws of giving, financial, and people don't understand that. People, oh, you should give, but don't expect to receive. That is not how this works. You should expect, just like you should understand your outputs. Your outputs is just as important as what you put into it. And so it's like a funnel. Okay. And so, and I think that people have this, and I think that is part of the belief system that a lot of people have. And being a practitioner in this is not just theory. So I challenge people to create the Excel spreadsheet, identify, and you can do this today. I want you to read the book, but if you didn't read the book, you can actually you can understand that process. You can create a specific day, and then so we teach you there's 5 levels of giving. And so and then we walk you through those things. So some of this it does involve others. You'll see a homeless person. That's typically what most people think about when they think of giving is, "Oh, I'll just go look for somebody." That's one of the days. So every day we're going to have you giving towards a cause or something. And then there's certain days where you give towards a non-for-profit, but then there are days where you're going to specifically go out and look for bigger ticket items. So some of you can financially give vehicles away. Some of you can financially give houses away. Some of you cannot afford at this point. But as you continue to keep track of of the gifts that you'll get received back, financial blessings that you'll get back, then you'll start to see like, wow, the more you give, the more you're going to receive. The less you give, the less you're going to receive. And so that's why it's important. It's extremely important for you to start documenting. And I have a thing in my office that says document it or it did not happen. And I get that's from my HR world because it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
Yes, yes. I agree. I agree. 5 levels of giving, Billy. That is really interesting. And uh, what about the intentionality, of giving? I mean, are we just giving because we want to receive something, or is it just because we have a calling from within that yes, it's kind of I need to give or kind of share this gift or give this away what I have earned as a gift to others. I mean, how exactly basically in the terms of mindset it works.
Yeah, and I think that's an awesome question. And I think it's all about structural giving. And so the world has taught us to not really focus on this aspect of giving. So I think we do have to be very deliberate and very intentional around the word giving. But in terms of the psychological aspects surrounding the core genesis of what you're asking is why, right? Why focus on this? And I think that we as a nation, and I have a goal to reach 1 million people through giving in 2025. And so creating this, I've strategically reached out to certain individuals in 20 countries, 20 nations, and India is one of them. And I think that whether it's South Africa or Dubai or Australia or Germany, all the countries that I reached out to, I want people, I'm creating an ecosystem where people are very intentional. And that question is very common question is like why give? And I think that goes back to our belief system. And I think it's a fair question. I think we need to lean in on it. And I think we need to understand why we're asking that question. And I think it goes back to that 8-year-old young man, that 8-year-old young lady, and what we saw our parents do. And it goes back to what I was my part of my evolution. All I saw was giving. I saw grandmother giving. My grandmother, both sets of my mother's father and my mother's mother, my mother's mother, my father's mother. They both were in agriculture. They both owned chickens and pigs and one of my grandmothers had a swine farm, had a hog farm, and so I would watch her give to families, and then I would see I would see some of these families that did not have the things that we had, and I saw um, you know the economic shift in their life where that one thing changed that family from not eating to be able to eat and smile. And so, yeah, it does feel good and it should feel good. And as you see, and I think if everybody felt this way and drove this way, we would have the homeless problem that we have in the world today. Not just, you go to, people like to talk about California and they had a place called Skid Row. If you've ever been, it's horrible. It's horrible. And I know that the president of the United States has addressed this and like, how do we solve it? You solve this problem nationwide by giving. And I think that people when they fully embrace the idea of giving, um, I think we create an overflow where we don't have these issues economically. And I think we've put ourselves into a quandrum where we have this economic system where the United States, we actually print money. We're in a $1 trillion deficit. It's over $1,000 billion. That's $1 trillion, $1,000 billion. A lot of money, and we're in like a 3.5 trillion deficit economically. And so one of the things I learned in business school was we would put ourselves, our university put us into, and this is essentially where I got the idea from the power circle. It wasn't called a power circle in school. It was just, we were put into this advisory board where we would form a company. And so we would have a CEO, a CTO, a COO, and a CFO. And so if you have those four key department heads, you can run a business successfully. And so I thought, wouldn't it be neat to create a power circle for individuals that wanted to become an ambassador in this Overflow Nation? And we would hold you accountable. Your advisory board will hold you accountable. And so some of the and so and I left it open though. You don't have to create a business, but if you did, I have a process for that. If you want to change the economics in your life, we have a process for that. But if you just want to be a better person, if you've already, because some people that have reached out to me, they've already financially done what they need to do. That's why the first person in the book is financially fortunate. And so I wanted to start there before I got into the weeds with some of the issues that we deal with in life. So I think to answer your question, the intentionality deals with um, creating an ecosystem in this world where we start to hit on homelessness, and we start to hit on single mothers that are in abusive situations where they feel like they can't get out of because their husband is too abusive, whether with verbally or very physically. And I think that we talk about these things, and I want to see a change in this world, and that's why I started.
That is really well put, Billy. Very well explained. I think there couldn't be a more justified reason per se to get into this. So before we wrap up, Billy, for those of us who have experienced success, but we still feel like something is missing within us, how do we tap back into that sense of purpose? What's the first small step we can take today? And then of course, read your book and the 9-week transformation course.
Yeah, I think that today, for those of you that have not been exposed to um, artificial intelligence. Um, I'm taking a class right now through Wharton. It's a kind of a prestigious university here in the United States, and it's taught me a lot. It's an AI course that I'm almost done with, and I think that if I were to give direction to those that are trying to get unstuck, is to download the free version of Chat GPT. I know I was reading some statistics that 1 out of 5 people haven't heard of ChatGPT yet, which is alarming. And I would create this um, co-pilot in your life where you ask ChatGPT and treat ChatGPT as a thought leader in your economics, and particularly if you are in abusive relationships or you are in. So there's the abusive side of what goes on in this world, which is horrible. And then there's the economic side, which is just as bad. So I would challenge your create prompts within your ChatGPT and not just look for ways of becoming a millionaire, but look for ways to get unstuck and tell your ChatGPT that that AI to serve as a co-pilot for your life, and you're going to use that as a thought leader. And I think that will, because what AI does, it pulls in algorithms throughout, um, certain aspects, and rather than go down that path, it is so sophisticated that I would challenge that it potentially will maybe smarter than some individuals. And so within that aspect, you can now become a super, um, I don't want to say superhuman, but you now have, um, it can articulate things. And I always say the questions you ask yourself control what you focus on. So if you continue to go through life, and I'll close with this, if you ask the wrong questions, you'll never get to the destination. Because if I were to hang out with you for 6 months, I'd be an expert podcaster because I started asking myself different questions. Like, wow, healthy mind, I never thought about it. So the same thing goes with challenging your prompt through AI. You'll start asking specific questions, and the output will be so great that you'll be a better version on the outside of that. Now, I still challenge you to read my book, but that's the best way I've answered it.
Definitely, Billy. Definitely. Great. And if our listeners would like to get in touch with you and get a hold of your book as well, and Overflow Nation, and its 9-week transformational journey, what's the best way to do that?
Info at overflownation.com is the best way. Info at overflownation.com.
Ray, I'll have it there in the show notes. And really, thank you for this raw, real, eye-opening conversation. Uh, I- I think we have learned a lot, and there's still a lot to learn, irrespective of the age, the place, the situation we are in. I think every moment, every situation, every conversation is a learning one if we ask the right questions. And thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
And to all of the listeners there, I highly recommend checking out Billy's book, The Answer: Break Every Limit, Receive Every Blessing. This time, the overflow stays. And if you are also ready for a deeper shift, explore the 9-week journey with Overflow Nation. And as always, here on BizBlend, true success comes from blending business. So keep doing that with purpose and passion. Thank you.